Do you relate well to being spiritual and not religious? Are you looking to transform your life to have greater purpose and experience more joy and abundance? If you are, you've come to the right place. Welcome. I'm Neil Pinkman, the spiritual director for the Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey. Over the past 2 decades, our open and affirming, diverse community has helped countless people in the same way. Enjoy watching. If you like what you see, check us out at cslnj.org. You can read this along with me, but let's take it a little bit more slowly today because it really is important who we are and what we are as a community. Here at CSL North Jersey, we are an open and affirming science of mind community where the vibration of love lifts you, the wisdom of the ages inspires you, and the science of mind teaching empowers you. We believe that heaven and hell are states of consciousness that you experience in this lifetime, and that you are the architect of your life, and that it is never too late to know true happiness. And all that is very true, and all that is the core of what we really know and believe in the principles of the science of mind here. So I know all of you are anxious to get on with your day because there's a big bowl happening today that most of you are aware of. I know that uh, Reverend Joel is a big fan of it, and he can't wait to get to the highlight of the day, which is the Puppy Bowl, right? And we know that the Puppy Bowl happens today. If you know, that's where everybody's attention is today. There's some other thing happening well later today, which some people may enjoy, but the Puppy Bowl is really that's there's a lot more love shown in the Puppy Bowl than there is in the Super Bowl. Let me just say that, you know. So enjoy, and right now I'm going to turn it back over to Ty for our opening chant, and to Evelyn. Thank you, Evelyn, for being our practitioner of the day, and thank Zuma for being our facilitator for Psalm Sunday today. That was a great session this morning too. So um, all yours, Ty.
God breathe through me. God feel through me. God see through me. God heal through me. God love. God speak through me. God move through me. God live through me. I am an instrument of willing. So God breathe through me. God feel through me. God see through me. God heal through me. God love through me. God speak through me. God move through me. God live through me. I and instrument of vessel.
Hmm. God, see through me. In this beautiful moment, God, be through me and speak through me. What I know is that God is everywhere, evenly present, that the one spirit, the one love, the one mind, the one law is all there is. It is within me as it is within each one of us. It speaks and lives and loves through me. It speaks and lives and loves through you, through us. So I know that I'm one with this beautiful power, and I speak my word from this power that is within me for this beautiful day, this snow-covered day where I am. And I bless the Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey. I bless every person under the sound of my voice right now, in this present moment, in the moments to come, through the recording. I am grateful for the love of God. I'm grateful that each one of us has the grounding within us to know that regardless of what appearances are in the earth, that we are connected inextricably to the one, that it is moving through each of us. It's moving through me. And so I'm grateful for this sense of safety, this sense of groundedness. I'm grateful to know that my source is never, it's always here. It's never far, and it's closer than my next breath. And so I bless this day. I bless each one of us and the beautiful work of this beloved community. And I release this word into the perfect law, knowing that all is well. I allow it to be so. Please close with me by saying, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you. Thank you, Ty and Reverend Evelyn, for that beautiful treatment. And yeah, Ty, I'm sorry, but yeah, the sound is not working well there. But we love the acapella.
It might well be a bunch of acapella this morning because the tracks are playing on this end, and I'm still working on it, so hopefully we'll get something.
I'm sure,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it'll all work out. And right now, if and I have just put it into the chat, if everybody wants to read along with our February affirmation, that would be good. Aware of the depth of this spiritual teaching and the very powerful application of it in my life, I free myself from the idea of separateness. Oneness is my awareness. There is no outside. There is no other. I have compassion, understanding, and the inspiration I need to create a loving and kind world. And so it is. All right. And we have our reading for the day from the textbook. And Reverend Joel, what was your topic today about the art of being happy?
You are enough, the art of happiness.
The art of happiness. So I'm gonna read a little about happiness. This coming from page 277 in the Principles of Successful Living in the textbook. And I'm going to read from a couple of different places in there. It starts with success and happiness are ours when we deal with absoluteness, which I believe is a very powerful statement. Each one should realize that there is nothing in him which denies that which he desires. Our unity with good is not established while there is anything in us which denies it. People often say, how shall I know when I know? The very fact that one can ask this proves he does not know. For when he knows that he knows, he can prove his knowing by doing. Thought sets definite forces in motion in mind, relative to the individual who thinks. For instance, I am known in consciousness as Ernest Holmes, for that is my name, and every claim made for me, which I accept, operates through avenues of mind activity and returns to me as some condition. And that condition is going to be happiness. Isn't that right, Reverend Joel?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, he's going to tell us in a minute, but we do have, Ty, I believe, a song before Reverend Joel tells us.
So, Neil, you stole my joke at the beginning, by the way.
Oh,
I did want to say there is a very, very, very tough game happening today. Two very tough teams, two teams that have hard fought their way to the big game. And I was just curious in this group, who here is Team Rough and who here is Team Fluff? Uh,
rough and fluff.
Rough and Fluff. Their track record is pretty even. They've played each other. This is an old picture. This is their 21st matchup, and it looks like it's going to be a very, very competitive and adorable game. So we're gonna see what happens. Yeah, I'm gonna be Fluff too, Edna. I want to be Team Rough, but I like the name Team Fluff, and I feel like I'm probably more of a fluff person than a rough person. So, and I do have. Ty's gonna be Team Rough. All right. Oh, here we
Rough and
go.
tough.
I actually was going to show you team pictures of both teams, but in interest of time, I'm going to keep going. I do have a Super Bowl joke, which was generated by ChatGPT. So let's see how this goes this time. All right. A die-hard football fan had been praying for years that his team would finally make it to the Super Bowl. And finally, that day came. His team miraculously had made it to the Super Bowl. The problem? The Super Bowl was sold out, but he was determined. He found a way to sneak in, and he was looking around the stadium, looking for an empty seat somewhere. And then he saw it. Literally the most perfect seat in the whole stadium, a single seat on the aisle, right above the 50-yard line. So he just kind of went over nonchalantly to it and kind of slunk in the seat as if it was his. He was thrilled. After he sat down, he was struck that such a prime seat would be empty. So curious, he turned to the older gentleman sitting to his side and he said, "Sir, do you know whose seat this is?" And the man sighed and said, "Well, yes, it's mine. Well, it was my wife's. We had season tickets for 40 years, but she passed away." The football fan felt terrible. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry for your loss, but this is the Super Bowl, and these are amazing seats. Couldn't you have found a family member or a friend to come with you?" The man sighed and shook his head and said, "I tried, but they're all at the funeral." Okay. I know that one, that's borderline. That's a borderline one. I read it to Alan first and said, "Is this too much?" And he said, "What's your fallback joke?" And I said, "My fallback joke is this: why did the football go to the bank? To get his quarter back." And he goes, "No, go with the other one. Go with the other one." So, all right. Let's see. This is less a talk and more a pep talk today. And I am going to just put up this, You Are Enough, the Art of Happiness. And I'm going to just kind of talk about this. I took notes all week long, and I finally thought, oh, I'm just going to chat about this. And You Are Enough, the Art of Happiness. And those are really two talks, two separate talks in a way. But I'm going to give you 4 different ideas so that we can think about You Are Enough, the Art of Happiness. And I'm going to give you an action item or 2 for each one of these things. All right. And the first one is happiness is a perspective. So we think of oftentimes, I don't mean we, this group, I mean we culturally think of happiness as an effect. Happiness is something that we have or something that we can gain. And in fact, the world would tell us that happiness is the size of your bank account, the size of your clothes, the size of your house, the type of car you drive, etc. All kind of outwardly outward effects of what the world, our world, the Western world thinks of as success. And it's very seductive. It's very seductive to think of those things. I don't know if any of you have ever read a book called The Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis is famous for the Chronicles of Narnia. But he wrote this little book, this wonderful little book called The Screw Tape Letters. And it's a series of letters written by a head devil in hell to a novice devil about how to seduce people, especially Christians, into unchristian-like behavior. And it's all these things that you can get people to do so that they stray further and further and further from the path of happiness and faith. And some of those things include to manipulate them with religious fear, to foster division, to promote a sense of spiritual superiority, or to distort religious values for political gain. I mean, I don't need to expand on that, but C.S. Lewis's point in that was that the way that we walk our faith and true faith and authentic faith and happiness comes through humility, love, self-awareness. And it says here, when faith is mixed with fear or resentment or an us versus them mentality, it can be twisted into something that looks religious, but is actually far from the core teachings of love, humility, and compassion. So C.S. Lewis and other spiritual teachers would argue that the way to happiness is through living with love, humility, and compassion. Those are certainly not necessarily the actual values that our Western world teaches. And I think we can all agree with that. Now, in Buddhism, they have the Buddha would say that the way to happiness is through contentment with what is. So that doesn't mean that we stop at what is. It just means that you stop with what is, be content, and from that place of contentment, then you can take an action. Your action then is not coming from a place of lack, it's coming from a place of gratitude. Years ago, I had asked, Julia Cameron to write a book on prosperity. And I thought that she would turn, Julia Cameron is famous, by the way, for those who may not know, for this book, The Artist's Way. And I thought a book on prosperity by Julia Cameron would do really well. And I thought she was going to turn in a book that was going to talk about what you can do to become very prosperous in your life. But instead, she turned in a book that I published called The Prosperous Heart. And the subtitle of The Prosperous Heart is Creating a Life of Enough. And the whole point in this book is the way to become prosperous is to already feel prosperous with what you already have. Begin with where you are and be prosperous. In fact, this is what she says. She says, although our culture invites us to dwell on negativity, there is an alternative that we can encourage in ourselves. That alternative is the prosperous heart. The prosperous heart recognizes that prosperity is a spiritual bottom line, not a fiscal one. By the way, I have the picture here, not a fiscal one. Our faith, not our cash flow, is what brings to our lives comfort and ease. And then later she has this very interesting concept of prosperity. And I think it ties into this point I'm making about happiness, where she says the opposite of prosperity is not poverty. The opposite of prosperity is anxiety. When we are possessed of a prosperous heart, we do not act rashly out of anxiety. Taking our time, we respond to life rather than merely react to it. Doing so, we find our lives are filled with choices. With these choices comes opportunity. Taking the time to discover, we find that even an apparent adversity has a silver lining. That's a whole different way of thinking about happiness. One of the things that I've loved, and I talked about this a couple months ago, that I loved about the science of mind is that I feel like the science of mind gave me a lens in which to see the world. And it's that lens of seeing through the appearance of the world around me to the core underneath it. And that becomes the place of happiness as a perspective. We cultivate this idea that happiness is who we are and what we choose to see around us rather than something that we gain or get. So our action for number one, happiness is a perspective, is daily gratitude. And again, I've talked about gratitude. We've all talked about gratitude, but gratitude is not just three simple things that we write down every day. It's really a sense of looking around and truly being grateful for every breath, for every single thing, for every moment that is good in our lives. Happiness is that perspective that we can cultivate like a garden, and we can pull the weeds out that are unlike it so that our thoughts are still focused on the one thing that we want. So that's number one. Number two, I'd like to tell you a story about number two. When my son Rafi was a little boy, he was so cute. He was so cute. And we used to put him in his little high chair, with his little bib, and we'd feed him. And some days, were better than others. With anybody who has fed kids will know, and we'd spoon feed him, and he'd eat it. And sometimes, he'd eat really quickly, but there were a couple things that he did not like to eat. Probably the same things that I wouldn't like to eat, or maybe we all wouldn't like to eat, especially when they are ground up as baby food. He especially did not like spinach and green beans. Oh my gosh, green beans especially. And I remember one time especially, he did this a few times, but one time especially, we put in the green beans in his mouth and he just held it there. And we're like, Rafi, come on, swallow. Rafi, swallow. Swallow the food. Because he knew that if he swallowed, he was going to get another bite of it, I think. And he just would not swallow the food. Rafi, swallow it so we can finish the green beans and go on to the applesauce. He loved applesauce. And he just had that look on his face like, And he would not swallow, and he held those green beans in his mouth for 45 minutes. Alan and I still talk about this. He held the green beans in his mouth for 45 minutes. Finally, he swallowed it, and we went on with the whole thing. But I remember saying to him, why would you hold in your mouth the thing that you don't like? Because now, instead of just swallowing it, getting it over with, for 45 minutes, you have the taste that you don't like. And of course, his answer to me was this. But, that was really something that I remember a lot. And it was because the fact that we make our lives sometimes harder than they need to be. And, life outside of us can be challenging. I think we can all agree with that. Why make it even more challenging with the things that we can create and control within ourselves or in our own, within our own actions? So number 2 is respond rather than react. He was reacting to something that he didn't like, and he held on to it. And we can do that sometimes. And sometimes we create drama or other forms of making our life difficult, when really all we need to do is respond rather than react. There are things in our life that are spinach or green beans that we cannot avoid. There are things that we have to do. I don't know many people who love to do taxes, okay? But it's something we have to do. If we don't do them, it makes our life harder. It's like holding the green beans in your mouth for 45 minutes. It just magnifies the thing that we don't like. But if you just do it, take the action and get it done, then it's behind you. And in fact, it actually creates energy, because how good does it feel to get the taxes done? So good, right? Or when you have to go to I just had my teeth cleaned. I don't know many people who love getting their teeth cleaned. I don't mind it, but I don't love it, especially the part. But I felt great afterwards. And I run my tongue and my teeth feel so great. It's like, oh, this is so great. So sometimes the spinach is good for you, or the green beans is good for you, even when they're not tasting so well. But why make things harder than they need to be? So energy follows action is one of those rules, those formulas that I've lived my life by. If I want certain energy in my life, I create that energy by doing something in that realm. If I want happiness in my life, I do something that makes me happy. Energy follows action. If I wait for something to be happy first, then I may be waiting a long time. But if I choose to respond to life with something good, then I tend to feel good and experience good from it, especially if there's something I don't want to do. I just do it and then get on with it and balance it out by doing something I love. Here's the action for this. There are a couple actions. One is, there's a book actually that Mel Robbins, who's popular right now, but her first book was called The 5-Second Rule. I don't know if you've read this, but the 5-second rule in a nutshell is, if there's something that you don't want to do or resisting, but you have to do it, count to 5 backwards and then kind of lift off. So it's like, well, I don't want to go do that thing. I don't want to go put my laundry in, but I'm going to do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there is something in us that responds to that. It's a weird little trick, but it responds. And we can do that with little things and big things. We don't have to keep the green beans in our mouth. Now, I have another rule, which I've had for years and years, and I've taught it for years and years, which is the 3-minute rule, which is, if there's something I specifically don't want to do, I will say, I only need to do it for 3 minutes. And then after 3 minutes, if I want to pause or stop, I will. And I set the timer. And thankfully these days we have these timers. But back in the old days when I used to do it, I had one of those white plastic ones with the big dial on the front, and it would start going. And then at the end of 3 minutes, it would make the little bell sound. The funny thing is once I started doing it, I was in motion, and I would end up just doing it usually until I was done. So if you combine the 5-second rule to get off your butt and do something, and then the 3-minute rule, which is I only have to do it for 3 minutes, you're going to end up getting the green beans swallowed quickly so you can get on with the rest of your life. And I always recommend, wait, this way. some daily creativity. That is important as we go through life. And it does create happiness, and it does ground us back into who we are. All right, that's number 2. Number 3. Now, I gave a talk quite a while ago about this, which is I talked about the things that bugged me, and the long list of things that bug me. For instance, and I wrote down some of those things here. Well, I mean, driving. We could just be here all day talking about the things that other drivers do that drive me crazy. Like, oh my gosh, narrow streets, when people, you're driving along and people open their car doors without even looking that you're driving. That makes me crazy. That makes me crazy. Or there's a turn line. You're in the green. There's a green arrow for a turn line, but it's a fast green arrow, and they don't turn quickly. The car in front of you doesn't turn quickly. So they get the green arrow, but by the time they turn, it's already turned anyway. Or something that bothers me is when I go to the movie theater and it's packed because it's opening night or opening weekend, and people come in late and then they want the best seats. And some people even have the audacity to ask other people to move down so that they can have the best seats. That makes me crazy. Waiting in line, long line. And somebody goes right to the front and says, "Can I just ask a quick question?" I want to yell out, "No, you can't. That's why we're all in this line. Why are you going to the front of the line?" When I go to a store and spend a lot of money and they either don't say anything at the end, or if I usually say thank you first, and if they don't say thank you back, they say no problem. That bugs me. That bothers me.
Joel, I have time later to do a session with you, a practitioner session on all these things if you need it. So.
Oh, well, I've got dozens of these. When people go to bookstores and they grab the book and then they open it up and crease the book that they didn't buy, that bothers me. On and on. I'll just go, the thing that bugs me the most, I think, is when people conduct business on their cell phones in public places, like on airplanes or the quiet car. If you remember, I once told the story of being in the quiet car on the train and the guy was talking on his phone, and somebody finally went up to him and said, "Sir, do you know that you're in the quiet car?" And he said, "Yes, I couldn't hear my phone, the other person on my phone in the other cars. I had to come here." Anyway, here's my reason for bringing all of this up. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this: "We become what we think about all day." When I stay at that level of mild complaint or large complaint, or talking about politics or the things that I don't like, or the price of eggs or this or that, that is the level at which I spend my day. That is who I then become that day. Versus spending the time using my mind wisely. This is a teaching called the science of mind. And when we use our mind wisely, Ernest Holmes says, we tend to expand our life and have a different experience of it. So it's easy to remember on Sunday mornings to do this, but it's difficult for me, and I've heard from other people it's difficult for them as well, that when you're in the quiet car and someone is conducting very loud personal business that we can all hear, it's sometimes difficult to do. So you are enough. The art of happiness is elevate your thoughts whenever you can. Remember to expand your thinking and move out of the complaint into either action, if there's something you can do that can change the complaint around you, or just move it to something else. Now, I do have a really good action for this. My action for this is to write whatever bothers you, write it down. So years ago, I worked at a shoe store, and we had a very difficult customer who would buy shoes. This is when I was in high school, would buy shoes and then wear them a few times or like out for dinner and then return the shoes. And it got so bad that the owner of the store said to me, next time she comes in, tell her she can't return the shoes. Now, I was 16 years old. What am I, what am, I'm supposed to tell this woman she can't return shoes? And he goes, yes, you have to do that. And he was a stern boss. So I said, all right. She came in, of course, she returned the shoes. And I said, ma'am, I've been told that you were not allowed to take returns from you anymore. And she said, huh, what? I've always returned before. And I said, I know, but the owner of the store has let me know that we cannot take returns from you anymore. And she goes, I can't believe it. I mean, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, that is the rule of the store now, is that you cannot wear shoes and then return them. She goes, what do you mean, the rule of the store? I've never seen this written down anywhere. So I, being 16 years old, took out a piece of scrap paper that was right there and the marker, and I wrote, store rule, you cannot return shoes that you've worn, and a piece of tape, and I taped it to the front of the cash register. Swear to God, this woman said, oh, well, it's written down. Because it was written, it seemed more important to her. So I would say this, write them down. Where do you write them down? I write them down usually in my morning pages, but I'm doing something new. I've started a Substack. I'm creating a thing on the subscription side of the Substack, which is my list of complaints and grievances. And I'm going to start, every time I have a new one, I'm going to put it there, because I've noticed when I write down, like the woman with the shoes, when I write down a grievance or complaint that I have, and then I have that same one again, I can think to myself, oh, wait, it's written down. And then I let it go. Suddenly, it doesn't stay with me any longer. That just the magic of writing it down means that every time it comes back up, you can say, oh, I've already had that one. It's already on the list. I can let that one go. And magically, now your mind is not filled with that. If for some reason you need a place to put them, you can get your own journal and call it the Ledger of Perceived Slights and Grievances. Put them in there, and every time it comes back up, say, oh, it's already in the ledger. Don't need to think about it again. And then you can elevate your mind to something greater. It's such a simple way of living in a happier, simple tool to live a happier life. Finally, let's get to the real one here. These are fun. Let's get to the real one, which is that you are enough. You are already enough. You are already enough. How much of, well, I'll speak for myself. How much of my life have I spent, how much of my life have I spent trying to be enough for other people? How much of my life have I spent trying to get the approval of family members? I developed what they call the good boy syndrome, which I always tried to do everything perfectly and good. And what did that get me? My family rejected me anyway, just because of the mere fact of my birth. All of that work trying to get their approval got me bumpkus. I've tried to get approval from friends. We try to get approval from people, coworkers or bosses. We even try to get approval from God. This is the tragedy of growing up in a culture that believes in something called original sin, which is that we believe that we're born not good enough. But the truth is, and another one of the many reasons I love this teaching is that we learned the truth with a capital T, which is that it doesn't make sense that we were born that way, because because we are told in every sacred book that there is that we are born in the image and likeness of the Creator itself. And the Creator itself is perfection and love. So at our core, that is who we are. We are already enough. We don't need to beg for it. We don't need to wait for approval. We don't need to hope for. We don't need to even perform for it. We are already it. All we need to do is align with it. Now, when listen to this. In this book here, The Science of Mind, on page 269, if you have the book with you, he says this: a mental avenue, now listen closely because there's a clue. A mental avenue must be provided through which the law may operate as a law of liberty, if we are to be free. This does not mean we need to please the law, for it is impersonal and neither knows nor cares who uses it, nor for what purpose. But because it is impersonal, it is compelled by its very nature to return to the thinker exactly what he thinks into it. And then Neil read from page 277 and 278, which was so great, where it says, how shall I know? How shall I know when I know? The very fact that one can ask this proves he does not know, for when he knows that he knows, he can prove his knowing by doing. So the clue in what I just read was this line here. This does not mean we need to please the law. We do not need to please God like Santa. We do not need to be on the nice list. What it does mean is that we need to align ourselves with the truth of who we already are. So last month, I gave a talk where I talked about the shortcut for remembering the 5 main ideas of science of mind. That was not just for fun. That's actually a formula. It's actually an action item. What you do is you remember your oneness, your source, who you really are, and then you remember that it comes as love and law, which then, through the creative process, is seed, soil, plant. Cause into law becomes the effect. 4 levels of consciousness. When we raise our consciousness, we are actually choosing from a higher place. And 5, the tool that we have is spiritual mind treatment. When we don't feel like we are already enough, we have within us, this group of people studying this particular book, tools at hand to remind us of our oneness. When we remember our oneness, we cannot help but remember that we are not only already enough, we are more than we even think that we are. We are more than we think we are. So the action for this one is to flood our life daily with this truth, with positivity. It's a way of remembering that the point of power for us is always in the present moment. When we return to the first law, which is oneness, when we return to that, it puts us right in the here and now, which is always where our power is. And it reminds us too that we don't overcome darkness and negativity by becoming dark and negative. We overcome it by shining our light as bright as we absolutely possibly can. So flooding our lives with as much positivity as possible is a way to remember that we are not only enough, we're already enough, and we're even more than we suspect. For those of you who have this book, in the back is a section that is called Part 6. There it is, Part 6 Meditations. And this is a section of dozens and dozens and dozens of short and long meditations. And these are powerful ways that we can learn and remember that we are enough as is already. We don't need to earn it, and there's nothing for us to do, but accept it and align with it. On page 516, he says this: I went into a mountain. I have discovered a secret place within, where the thought goes into a mountain high above the din of the world. I have found in this mountain a place of peace and rest, a place of joy and comfort to the heart. I have found that the secret place of God is within my own soul. I will listen for this voice. Who you are is fully available to you at every moment, in every place. There's no place you need to go to get it, nothing you need to buy, nothing you need to earn. You were born enough, you are enough, and that is amazing. So in closing, I'm going to read one of Ernest Holmes' treatments, which is on page 560. Take a breath. And just for a moment, feel that enoughness that you already are. And remember for a moment that we don't have to be seduced by the world into the glitter of what they think that our happiness should be. We can go right to that place inside where we know happiness truly resides. And when life gives us green beans, we can just swallow it quickly. That's right here in the book, by the way. When life gives us green beans, we can just swallow it quickly, knowing that maybe it's actually even nurturing for us, but let's at least get it done right away so we can move into positive creative action. And when we find our mind going to that faux level of complaints and grievances and irritations and upsetness and anxiety, we can just write it down and say, oh, it's out of the way. I've cleared it up and out of myself, out onto something else. And now I can choose something greater and then move into that place of oneness where where all of the spiritual masters have said that is our place of remembering who we are and whose we are. This is page 560. Perfect intelligence directs my thoughts. We now let go of everything and enter into a state of peace. We know the Spirit of God within us is God, the living Spirit Almighty, that God who is infinite, perfect, and complete, never needed anything, never had any trouble, never could destroy. The God who never operated against itself, who never condemned itself. The Spirit that fashions each of us from its own perfect being. All in all, we know the God, omnipresent, full and free, one with every pathway trod, our immortal destiny. That infinite wholeness is perfect peace within us now. That infinite intelligence is working through each one of us and in our affairs. Our thought is inspired, guided, governed, and directed by divine wisdom. That infinite wholeness is the circulation of ideas, of intelligence, of wisdom, truth, and life. It is the elimination of every conception of confusion. It is the assimilation of that which is whole, happy, and perfect. The divine intelligence is the government of our affairs. Each has within ourselves this guide to truth, to reason, to beauty, to right action, to certainty, and to peace. Perfect intelligence directs my thought today. And so it is.
In the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy. In the silence there's release from a world full of chaos and noise. So I wait for these precious moments when I hear all that could never be said, and right here in this holy silence I find God, I find myself.
Thank you, Ty. And thank you, Reverend Joel, for a wonderful talk. And, it's just, there's so much in the textbook. There's so much in these readings to just, I mean, and again, as like many of you, if your book looks like this, you've been through it, pages falling out, colors, multicolors, but every single time that this happens, um, it looks differently. It sounds differently. So it's like, I don't know. It's just so refreshing every time, and those are beautiful readings. And for now, we're going to go into our gratitude portion of today, as we always do. And gratitude immensely, because it's through all the different ways of giving, through volunteering and financial donations and everything, that make it possible for us to share this teaching and to hear talks like Reverend Joel today, which was fantastic. So um, please, let's keep supporting a teaching that really, really needs to be known more than it is right now. And in the chat is the conscious giving affirmation. So if you would read along with me. I bless this gift that I give today. I give this gift from my heart, and I give it mindfully. May my gift go further to heal, prosper, and bless this center and all who enter. I accept all good that comes as a result of this flow, knowing that it returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. And that is how it is. So it is. I want to remind everybody that while we were supposed to be in person today, apparently Mother Nature had different plans. But we will be on Zoom only next week. We do not have the sanctuary next week, but we will be back here on Zoom, and we will have Reverend Michelle as our speaker. So from Reverend Joel to Reverend Michelle, what a month. This is great. I mean, it's going to be really, really good. I got to say, when, with these readings from the book, our spiritual mastery class, and I know there's a number of you that are in that class, has been fantastic, covering the principle, talking about it. And don't be shy if you want to join in. There's still a few more to go. Just to join the conversation is so well worth it. So, and by the way, I had an idea for another possible discussion group, and hopefully I'll get that put together this week. But if you have an idea, if there is a specific discussion group, book, class that you have in mind that you think would be a wonderful thing to do, let me know. We're happy to try and pull it together and make it happen, because I know a lot of you got a lot of stuff churning in your head about this teaching and different ways of learning about it. So we do like to know that. So thank you all for being here today. There's so many of you that are so anxious to get out and shovel snow and slide on the ice. I'm not going to keep you here any longer. I know you want to get your booties on and get out there. So that Raffy, I'm telling you, what an expression! What an expression!
He's going to kill me, by the way, when he says.
Well, that's what editing is for, Joel. That's what editing is for.
We'll put it back to this.
We're going to have Ty sing us out again. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you all. Love you all.
Now, I may have solved the problem. If I haven't, then it'll be a cappella. But if I did solve the problem, I'm going to start from the beginning and sing every song that I didn't sing to a track. Just kidding. Okay.
Well, you know what they say, Ty. Your a cappella is Bella.
Well, thank you. Here we go. Can you hear anything? Nothing? Who cares? I'm not. It's an a cappella day. If I turn it up anymore, my neighbor will probably come knocking on my wall. God is the only power in my life. Look how my life has changed and our God is alive. I'm living a life of gratitude. It's love that changed my attitude. God is the only power. God is the only power. God is the only power in my life. Again, God is the only power in my life.
At the Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, we believe in empowering individuals to discover their inner strength and their connection to divine life. Through our supportive community, transformative workshops, and uplifting services, we provide a safe space for personal growth and spiritual exploration. Whether you're seeking clarity, healing, or a deeper understanding of life's mysteries, our center offers practical tools and timeless wisdom to help you thrive. Join us in creating a more diverse, compassionate, and kind world. Your world, the way you want to create it.